It's funny because Omar threw me off my game. I asked him for a song.
Okay.
You know, he sends me a playlist. Not only he sends me a playlist, but he sends me like the most eclectic playlist. I mean, there's JJKL on that playlist. There's Quincy, of course, you know, and there's this Sonny and Cher, which is so on Sonny and Cher. It's so funk, it's so soul. And I said, dude, what are you doing to me? You know, I want one song. You know? I'm sorry. So why? Why this eclectic selection of us? You know, I think there were like more than 48, 50 something songs.
Yeah, I mean, I think the playlist goes on for about maybe 14 hours.
Oh wow!
Oh my god!
Yeah. No, I like. So if you couldn't gather from my playlist, I love the 70s. I love the 60s.
Oh, I picked it
and
up.
the 80s. You know, so 60s to 80s is kind of what I feel for me is the golden age. You know, the golden age, because I feel like a lot more people were more present and a lot more people were more expressive.
Oh, yes.
You know,
Yes.
so, and they weren't afraid of expressing themselves.
Yeah.
Whereas today there's a lot of, you know, fear of that, you know. So I think that that's why I like the 70s. People were more present.
So interesting. I like the idea that they're present and free. You're
Yes.
saying like
And
they're
expressive.
They're able to. They're more free to express
Exactly. Yeah.
who
yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
Is that
And
you?
Cher
Well, I
best,
hope so.
Cher best symbolizes that.
Cher does,
Oh
yeah.
my
It was
God.
her show, you know,
Yes.
like when she started off early on with all of her outrageous outfits.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
She
Yeah.
remains so she's eternal. She's
She
like
is.
the Sabah of.
You know, she's
like,
of Armenian descent.
really?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
So I feel a special connection to her.
Right.
Yeah.
you're Armenian.
Well, hello and welcome to Forward Moves, hosted by Lina, Nahhas and Raja Haddad, a conversation with our guests about the path of their successful journeys and what keeps them moving forward in an ever-changing world. Hello, Omar Al Gurg. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We're good, thank you. We are thrilled to have you with us and talk about all the beautiful things you have achieved, or shall I say you have created.
Oh.
For our listeners and viewers, Omar Al Gurg is an Emirati designer and entrepreneur known for his contributions to the UAE's creative scene. He is the creative director and founder of Modu Method, an interactive contemporary furniture design studio that emphasizes accessible and sustainable design. His work often integrates storytelling and problem solving, drawing inspiration from his Arab roots, and endeavors to blend creativity, community, and functionality in his work, which has garnered some global acclaim. His pieces aspire to solve practical problems with a thoughtful design ethos, shared by personal experience and a dedication to community. His journey includes guidance from his family business and architectural studies abroad. AlGurk remains committed to accessible design principles, craftsmanship, and storytelling, making his designs stand out with a unique sense of character. So, Omar, this is the PR bio.
Yes, that is the
I'm
PR
gonna toss
bio.
it- I'm gonna toss it away.
I wasn't expecting you to read the whole thing.
I'm going to toss it away. I'm going to
Guys,
ask
we
you.
read everything you give us.
Exactly. And we're going to ask you a simple
I've never heard it out loud, you know?
There you go.
What does it feel? How does it feel hearing it out loud?
Oh my God, I'm like, that's a lot. I need a shorter bio.
Oh, I edited some of them.
Oh, wow.
I really edited some of them.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He said created, and he goes, wow, that's a big word. What did you mean by that?
I don't know. I feel like nobody's actually creating anything. You know, I think we're reinventing. We're not reinventing the wheel. You know, the wheel exists. We're just making it better in our own way. You know, so when you're creating something new and you're developing something new, maybe it's a new piece of technology or a new material or something, that's just rearranging something that's already there.
Yeah.
So I think everything's already been created,
Yeah.
but it's just our job to rearrange it in the way that we like, you know.
I love that perspective.
I love it and I would agree with it, but obviously I will challenge it as well.
Yes, please do.
Because by rearranging, we're creating a new form. We
Yes.
might be, you know, the content might be the same, but we're creating a new container. And by doing so, we're creating a new expression of what was probably there, but we never looked at it that way. And that's why...
But I'd like to challenge you as well.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, go ahead. I
we're
love
good.
that.
We're good. We have half an hour for that.
So if you look at anything, right, anything kind of resembles something, right? Whenever you look at something that is an interesting form, it's always resembling something else, right? These forms have to come from somewhere. Whenever you're learning how to sketch, you know, at school or something, they teach you how to put shapes together to make something completely
Yes.
interesting, but that still comes from somewhere. You're still putting things together.
Yes.
You know, so form is always reminiscent of something
It
else.
is.
Yeah.
I love that you're already expressing what your work is all about, and you use the word reminiscing, and I love that word, by the way. One of my favorite
Yeah, me
perfumes
too.
is reminiscence.
Oh, well, no, one of my favorite words is I don't know what that perfume
I love
is.
reminiscence. Well, I only love it because of the word, but you know, I was contemplating that the other day, and I was thinking how there's layering involved, and each layer you need to go backwards to move forward, and it's quite an interesting thing. That layer is ethereal. The form might be set. The form might be a structure that is set, but the actual layering comes with that ethereal essence that is very much yours and yours alone. And what I'm noticing with the artists here is all of them have humility. It's like, well, I haven't created, I've rearranged, I've reorganized. You know, I want to like just acknowledge that there's an essence that is like a fingerprint that is not recreated, and that's you.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's a collection of all of my experiences, all of our experiences collectively. So I agree with you. There absolutely is going to be a fingerprint on it.
Great.
And I would like to thank Lina for framing what I was trying to say so elegantly.
Yes.
rather than I want to challenge you on that. So, thank you, Lina. You know? So where did it all start, Omar? Is it where you didn't find something to hang your stuff on during your national service? Is it when
you've done research?
Well, it was in your bio somehow.
We read everything.
Oh no!
Is it through? Was it through your dad's love for photography, or when you visited all these museums around the world?
So it depends how far you want me to go, right? So it's
at
like
the start.
At the start,
What you would define
as a baby
start.
boy. No, so I think it would start when I started going to museums. You know, it was when I don't know. There was something about being exposed to all of that art. It was like an immense amount of art, and in the UAE at that time we didn't have very many museums and very many art galleries. So when I would go traveling with my grandfather, my aunt, my dad, my parents, basically my entire family, we're quite an educational family. So we would always go and visit the museum, whether it was an art museum with my aunt or the natural history museum with my father. There was always something that we were learning from these museums. So I think because I was interested in learning all of these new things, I started to develop a little bit of a creative mindset. And because I had spent a lot of time alone as a child as well, I would try to get creative with entertaining myself, you know. So I'd go into the garden and I would start, you know, experimenting with plants, or eventually that turned into taking photos of plants. And I really wanted to feed my creative mind. So there was kind of like a calling for me when it comes to anything that had anything to do with something that is artistic or creative. And then I started, I was like, okay, my family was like, yeah, if you want to be creative, you know, you have to figure out a way to make money out of it.
Let's monetize that.
How did that feel?
You know, I was like, yeah, but what's money? You know, so I was like, okay, architecture. There you go. You know, because it was something, you know, as well that was acceptable, you know, by the community. It was something that was also prestigious. You know, you study architecture, all of a sudden everyone calls you Bash Muhandis.
Right.
You know? They're the non-struggling artists. They're like
well, you would think
but
so.
the non-struggling.
You would think you're right. You would think so. Yeah.
You would really think so. You know, even with some of the most successful architects, I think, spend very long hours in the studio.
True.
Incredibly long hours. I think, and that's just a part of any kind of creative industry, you know. And then, you know, with architecture, you kind of sign a contract with this design that you design for like a couple of years until it gets built. And I don't have patience.
Okay. Okay. All right.
So product design is a lot more.
There you go.
It's like instant gratification.
All
Right.
But what I've noticed is, you know, it's all sensory. You know, it's like whether you're working with plants in the garden, that's tactile. Whether, you know, taking pictures of these plants, you know, whether up to your current designs, there's the shape, there's the form, but there's also this invitation for this tactile experience. Am I reading that correctly?
100%. I feel like the tactile experience is the most important experience. You know, when you are triggering all of these different senses,
Yes.
that's when your mind is really at work, and that's when you're learning the most, you know. As a child, you know, it's important. I mean, when you have a baby, you take it, him or her. You take him or her to the beach, and you take them to the beach, and then you put them on the sand, and then all of a sudden there's a new kind of sensory experience, you know, and then they learn whether they like it or not. And a lot of kids maybe not like grass, so they lift their feet when you put their feet on grass, you know. So ever since you were a child, you learn how to kind of appreciate that tactile experience and that sensory experience until we learn not to make such a big deal about it, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, you said something about spending time a lot alone.
Yes.
And you wanted to feed that creative mind. It almost feels like that's what the imprint, the tactile stuff that left its fingerprint on you as well. All the touching of the plants, like you're bringing up that memory of a child as if it's you, not it.
Yes.
You know?
Exactly.
And it feels like there's that, and you know, that instant gratification is also somewhat like a childlike sort of expectation. So the architect takes too long. It's too adult, perhaps.
Yes.
You get to play and reimagine is that what's going on? Are you digging into the child in you every time you're creating
I think I am, because it makes me feel, I mean, when I get somewhere with something that I'm, you know, making, it brings me a little bit of happiness, you know. And I always link happiness to being a child, you know, because that's when you're really unfiltered.
And you're discovering.
And you're discovering, exactly.
And everything amazes you, everything impresses you, and everything is new and everything is exciting. And
yeah, but you know, I mean, like, I was trying to tell myself this the other day. I was like, you know, it's actually interesting that we think that nothing is exciting anymore, when actually everything is exciting. You know, and I don't want to sound too positive or too, you know, but if you learn how to appreciate the little details, at least in my case, you know, if I learned how to appreciate all of these little details, then all of a sudden everything started to become a little bit more exciting, you know.
And infinite possibilities of creation.
Open up. And so, is this how you moved forward from architecture? Because
I'm still doing architecture.
You're still doing architecture?
I'm still doing, yes. I practice with my family, actually. So I
do
both.
Yes. So you do both. Yeah. But your heart is still in both, or
yes, absolutely. No, listen. If you don't put your heart in something that you do,
then there's no worth.
What's the point? You know, you might as well be doing something else.
Yeah. So you do a bit of that and a bit of that, or more of one or the other?
I try to split my time evenly. I really try to split my time evenly. Of course, there are going to be some days where I focus more on one rather than the other, and vice versa. Right. But I go to work with my family every single day, and then after I'm done with my work there, I go to my studio, and then we continue.
And with your family is the architecture, and in the studio is the playground for your other stuff.
Exactly.
Basically.
Yeah.
Wow. So what is it like balancing these? Because it feels, you know, let me put it out there.
Yeah.
Unfiltered.
Okay, please.
And then just tell me no.
Yeah.
But it feels
By the way,
like,
we can always edit.
Yes.
We didn't tell you that. We didn't tell you that.
You can edit. You can just go like this to my words. But it almost feels like there's the family and the architecture. You go to work. And then there is it almost feels like this is the adult and this is the child in you.
Yeah.
Is that what's going on? Are you like being a bit of both?
You know, in the beginning, it was like that.
Right.
It was like that, where I felt like I was, okay, more adult here and more childlike over here. And there are days in the studio where I'm very childlike.
Tell us about that.
You know? No, but I'm coming to realize that if you want to turn anything into a business, you know, you have to adult as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So there are times when I'm an adult at the studio as well. And then when I'm creating or when I'm trying to, you know, develop something else, I become a little bit more childlike.
Right.
Yeah, because I realize that when I'm trying to be creative while I'm an adult, it doesn't work. It just, everything comes out ugly.
But for me,
Yeah.
sorry, Lina, but for me, that's synonymous with flexibility and agility. You know, this kind of balancing between the adult, you know, kind of world of the family business, but also the playfulness of my studio. Is this what was the inspiration behind Modu? Because Modu, if I understood correctly, is short for modularity, right? Yeah. Is this modularity reflective of how agile you like to be with your expression and creation?
Well, I mean, the modularity is, I think, more representative of how bored I get.
That's why you called it the method, and not the Modu method and not Modu design.
Method is the way of living, right?
Yeah.
So, but I get really bored really quickly. So I like to rearrange things, and my space always changes. It shape shifts. So the furniture is always moving around, and it's making something that's completely different. So I like that kind of versatility that comes with the furniture that we make, you know. So and I think that comes with that essence of boredom.
Yes. Well, I mean,
I like not having something that is so rigid. You know, like if it's
you like
chair,
movements.
I like movements. If it's a chair, why does it have to be a chair? You know, can it be something else? You know, like what can we make it?
There's poetry in that as well. I mean, the I always feel shapeshifters in general are the poets of our world because they're continuously having to recreate, layer. Although you think this has already existed, it hasn't. You're the one turning it into something in a completely different expression. And it's, you know, there's a real form of poetry in that. So I caught on to I know you did as well.
Yes.
I saw that bulb, the boredom. The
Bang.
boredom. It's like, you know, we always ask this question, like, what challenges in your field of living, let's say, whether it's professional, whether it's in that playground, whether in general, what are the challenges that actually are turned around and become a source of moving forward for you? Like, you can, you know, what you've mentioned boredom, but I'm not sure if that's a challenge.
Oh no, that's not a challenge.
You were laughing. You almost have a great relationship with boredom.
I
exactly.
I love being bored.
You said it.
You know what I mean? Like, it felt like he has a good relationship with boredom, like a child does.
It's playful.
I mean, it's very playful. You know, you're bored, and then all of a sudden you find yourself doing something else. You know, like, and it's something that you weren't expecting that you would do because it's a result of that boredom.
And is this what
That's
keeps
not
you moving forward?
No, well, yes and no, you know, but what keeps you moving forward, I think, for me, I think it would be the consistent inconveniences, you know? So whenever there's a challenge that happens in the workplace or there's a challenge, you can either look at it as a challenge and an obstacle, or you could look at it as an opportunity. And I think and there are times, I'm not going to lie, you know, there are times where I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, roadblock, I don't want to do this anymore.
I'm going to climb. I'm not even climbing that wall, you know.
You know, it's just 2 steps, you know, and I'm just like, I don't want to do it. I'm looking at the steps and I'm like, no.
It's not shape-shifting fast enough.
But I think when I remind myself that actually all of these different challenges can become opportunities and room for growth and provide a room for growth, then that's what keeps me moving forward.
So what was one of your biggest challenges to
well, more recently, it's dealing with clients. You know, it's interesting how there are some clients that feel entitled in one way or another, you know, and I'm talking about this because this happened really fresh, like 2 days ago. You know, how they feel that they can disrespect you just because they're on the paying end of the spectrum, you know. So, and that's just not very human, you know, in my opinion. Like, you're looking at someone as if they are a service, you know. So, and that's something that we've learned over the years to unlearn, you know.
Right.
So there still is that kind of challenge where you have to keep your composure when you're dealing with clients and when you're so this is something that I'm navigating around. It's also because I mean, naturally I'm a people pleaser, you know, so I'm very kind and I'm very nice and I'm very or at least I think I am.
Wait till you get out of here. We're gonna reshoot that.
or wait until the episode is published. Let the audience decide on that.
So I always.
But you got our vote. Sorry, you got our vote. By the way.
Thank you. But I always give people a second, third, fourth chance. You know, to in this case make the payment. And then by the time it gets to like the 15th chance, you're like, okay, listen, if you don't pay us, we're going to come and pick up our stuff, you know? And then they start cussing at you. So it's like, it's just not great. So there's a lot of that comes in the creative industry, I think, because it's not transactional. You know, you're using your brain, you're using your emotion to be able to, make things that you would think are beneficial for other people.
Correct.
And then when someone comes at you and goes like, actually, this was really crap, you know, after they pay you and after they were the ones that decided on the finishes and they were the ones that had signed off on everything. It's just, you learn how to put it aside and say, well, so many other people are happy with the product. So just because you got angry with me, that doesn't mean our product is crap, you know?
It's like you have such a respectful way of looking at things. You're respecting them, you're respecting the work, you're respecting yourself. And what I'm hearing from the story is that when there's like a breach of that respect of the work, respect of you, respect of, the value of what they're buying into. So how do you, apart from composing yourself and containing yourself, and which is the opposite of what we started with the freedom of the 60s and the 70s unfiltered. So how do you you're saying I'm trying to navigate that. If it's going to be consistent now that you're growing, you're going to be in demand, you're going to have a whole range of, So how are you navigating that?
Block and blacklist.
Oh, okay.
Boundaries.
Boundaries. Thank you for framing it that way.
They're healthy. We all need them.
She's the wise one. She's the one between the three of us.
I'm learning. Trust me, I'm still learning about my boundaries.
But I know. I think it's setting boundaries is very important. I think being able to know where the limit is and how much you can take and withstand is also very important. And knowing that whatever action you make is actually going to reflect on not only you, but the business and the people that you work with and your entire practice, you know? So when you have that pressure, on your shoulders, you're kind of like, okay, actually, maybe I need to act in a different way now, just so that I can protect everything hard that I've worked on. So the harder you work, the more you're able to keep your composure, because, well, there are times when you're really not composed, but the harder you work and the more effort I think that you put into something, the more there is at stake.
So there's responsibility. It's almost like you're holding it because there's more responsibility and there's more adulting to be had in that moment.
And that requires also a certain level of balance, it's also a balancing act. Right? And on that point, one of the sections we have in our podcast, we reach out to friends. I was asked to read it out if you don't mind. So on the topic of balance, since I work closely with Omar and we both value maintaining a good work-life balance, I wanted to ask, what are his plans for next year to disconnect and find that balance? And that question came from Minnat Al-Abid.
Balance. Okay. Next year, I think I want to take more vacations. I know because these past 3 years that we've started the brand, it's just been work. And although I do take some time off and I do find myself learning how to balance, but I think that these past 2 years, maybe I've been struggling a little bit with that. But there's always a work-life balance between me and my friends and my colleagues and all of that stuff. But with myself, it's not there, So I think next year what I want to be doing is I want to be spending a little bit more time in nature, whatever kind of nature it is, whether it's a beach, a forest, in the middle of the ice, I don't know, Antarctica. So
there's stillness in nature, right? And there's balance.
There's stillness, but there's also a lot of movement. And it's not necessarily physical movement, but it's also movement of sound. I was actually on Antarctica. I was doing a lot of research on that. And apparently the sounds that you hear there are insane. Even though the place is completely still, the sounds that you're able to hear are very, interesting and eerie and exciting. So yeah,
it's almost like the things in between that we don't usually hear because there's too much noise in there. You get a chance to hear them. I remember once I was in Patagonia and the glaciers. It was almost like an orchestra. Just their tiny movement is like this orchestra. And, it's reminding me, again, it's like your time alone. It's like reconvening, regathering. You said right at the beginning, nature. You even mentioned that right at the beginning. So it's like you're always going back to what feeds you, what feeds that mind of yours, what nourishes it, that spaciousness, that language that nature has so naturally.
And I want to pick up on, the stillness. I said nature is still, and I said, no, but there's movement. And it's so true. We don't see it. We don't know it or whatever, but we feel it's there. It has its own way of expressing its movement. And, look at... and in my house, we've got, centennial trees, and you wouldn't imagine that these are like massive trees of 300 years old. You wouldn't imagine that these trees are moving, but they are in constant movement. The roots are still reaching out. They're connecting with each other. They're growing their own kind of offsprings. They're communicating with their siblings around them, and and when you look at it, it's just a standing tree. The same thing as you said in Antarctica, the same thing as you said in Patagonia. It's still a sheet of ice. What is happening there? But it's constant movement, perpetual movement, and this is the space that we all, make part of, and that we all kind of, move with. As
and layer on,
and layer
like
on
put
it.
Stories onto. So we're talking about the layering that we spoke of right at the beginning. We're constantly putting our essence, we're regathering, and it's all alive. We're all in conversation with it all the time. But I love to hear it from artists who really do take time. My brother is also an architect, and he's an artist as well, and he must have alone time, and now we're seeing it all the time. It's kind of like you have to regather who you are again, go back and come and layer and come back, and it's that
re-energize,
really,
resource.
Absolutely. It's very important.
Is that more so because we're in Dubai, in your opinion? Because you're in Dubai, and we can ask you that. Do you think
you can ask? I mean, I think, well, maybe, part of it is living in a city. Dubai wasn't always what it is now.
Yes.
But I think that if you were to place me in the middle of the desert or a forest or something, and I was raised there, I would probably still want to be alone,
Right.
I would want that time for myself. I wouldn't want to be around, maybe in that case, my tribe for very long. And I would maybe disconnect a little bit just so that I can process everything that's happening around me. And then I would go back to my family or my tribe or something like that. I think this is just, it's kind of like, and I don't know, like it might be called fitra in Arabic.
Yeah.
So it's something that is a need that I know that I need to do.
Right. It's very intuitive. It's
very
instinctual.
intuitive,
It's instinctual. Yes, that's the word.
Back to the child who's has his
Touching,
feet or her feet on the grass.
On the grass or the sand.
On the sand.
Exactly.
And do you, like, my curiosity here is, do you gravitate more towards one nature because of your upbringing? Is the desert somewhere where you find a lot more creativity or juice, or the forests because it's lacking here, or where is it, or it doesn't matter?
I don't know, actually.
Right.
I don't think it matters to me. I mean, I know that I feel different things in different places.
Right.
So if I go to the beach, I feel relaxed. If I go to the desert, I feel a little bit more maybe alert. For some reason. I don't know. But if I go to the forest, I feel serene.
Right.
Right. So all of these different environments, they affect the way that you feel, and they trigger all of these different neurons in your brain that make you feel a certain way, right? And I think that I need to feel all of these different things for me to be able to process everything around, like about the environment around me.
You speak of the language of process, and I'm wondering, is there anything you do on the side to help the healing if any wounds come along the way? And doesn't have to,
the channeling of all these senses.
Like
because you mentioned what I found interesting. You mentioned 3 senses.
Yeah.
I feel relaxed, alert, serene. All these are channeled, but not in a conflictual way. So to your point, Lina, what do you do to make them live in harmony?
Live in harmony. I mean, I think that's up to them.
I love it. You just stay open and they'll do their thing.
Yeah, they'll do their thing.
I'm just here. I'm just going through.
I'm a channel for these emotions to go through, So,
but the language you're using, Omar, is language I hear usually from people who are in the healing industry. The processing, the channeling, are there certain tools that you draw upon to help you with that?
Do that? Well, maybe. I mean, I think it's through the activities that I do, right? And those can be the tools.
What are they?
So they could be diving.
Okay.
Diving is a very important tool for me.
Yeah.
I haven't done it in a very long time, but I need to get back to it. Pottery.
Wow.
Okay. Pottery is also very important because it teaches you a lot about yourself, in the process as well. You wouldn't think so. You would think, oh my God, I'm making a mug. Actually, what you're making is a lot of other stuff.
It teaches you because you're the one contemplating. Not everybody does that.
Exactly. You're the one, when you're in the zone and you're thinking, it's either there's like white noise that's in your mind or there's a lot of processing that happens in your subconscious mind. There's reading. I'm always reading a book. No matter how long it takes me to finish that book, I'm always reading something, Right now, actually, I think the reason why I'm speaking this way about nature and about everything is because I'm reading a book called Braiding Sweetgrass.
Okay.
It's a very interesting book. It's about indigenous knowledge and its relationship to scientific knowledge and the comparison of that.
The second book from last I finished was called The Secret Life of Trees, and it's written by a German forest ranger who obviously dedicated his life to trees and lived in forests, and he tells us the secret life, the communal life of trees that little do we know about that. So I'll pass the title to you.
There's another title that is related to The Secret Life of Trees. I don't know if it's the same writer or anything, but it's called The Secret Life of Cows.
Okay. I thought it's the same author.
I don't think it is.
I would love to read that one. I'd love to know The Secret Life of Cows.
But, animals are also a very big part of our nature and our,
Absolutely.
So I think this book talks about the relationship of cows towards one another, the genetics that they have and how they have certain behaviors that are passed down from one generation to another, so it's very interesting. And there's like a little family tree of cows, and you see what their behaviors are in this book. It's very interesting.
The social code of cows.
Social code of cows.
We're digressing here.
Sorry.
We're digressing. I'm the one who took you there.
But they're related to the grass. They're all related to the grass.
I want to go back to you moving forward,
yes,
right? And we understood that movement, space is essential in day to day. If I ask Omar today, what is your next move? What is your next phase? What will that be?
Well, as Omar or as Modu?
Oh, they're two.
Okay,
you choose both.
You choose. Yeah, you choose.
So with Modu, it would be now we have to move, unfortunately or fortunately.
Yeah.
It gives us an opportunity again to kind of grow in that respect. But what's happening is that they're demolishing our studio. Because it's in a bungalow and it's a really nice. It's not really a studio. It's more like a majlis. So we have to move that majlis somewhere else. And
it will still be an urban majlis somewhere else?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're trying our best to do that. We want to make it as much of a community space as possible. I think that's our next move. And then because we'll be in a new environment, everything is going to kind of unfold in a nice way.
Yeah.
I'm very much, I don't know if you can tell, I'm very much of a go with the flow kind of person.
Yes.
Yep.
But in the studio, in contrast to that, I'm also very...
methodic.
Not methodic, but very... can I say anal?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, we'll just add an E. We'll add an E. We'll add an E to the podcast.
I'm very picky.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
Picky.
Yeah.
So yeah, even though I'm very go with the flow, oops, sorry. Even though it's a mic, I like to be very picky about certain details. You know. So yeah, I that did not answer your question.
It did. Absolutely, because it really does go back to your initial, which is you look at the detail, you're specific, but you're also taking in, like you're open and you're unfiltered, and you let things shape you. You're a shapeshifter, and you're shapeshifted as well with whatever is around you. So I got that from you, and I wonder then, as Omar, what are your next moves?
As Omar, I mean, but the aim for not just next year, but progressively, is to feel happier, you know. And I think that's a very important aspect of everybody's life, you know, because we do live in a very fast-paced city, you know. And it's very hectic, you know. We're always stuck in traffic, you know. We're always, you know. I mean, road rage is a huge part of my life.
Is that where you let it all out?
Yeah,
finally,
I think it is.
All the stuff you keep under.
I think it is, you know, and then by the time I'm home, I'm exhausted. I'm like, what is?
I hear you.
You know, because naturally everybody thinks they're the better driver, right? So I think I'm the best driver and the worst, probably.
They're all breaking the rules except for you.
But I think essentially Amar's next move is to feel happier. You know, whether it's by the things that he has to do, you know. I sound like a psychopath, you know. People talking in third person usually are. but whether
it's it can do.
It can do. Yeah, but whether it's with the things that I have to do or want to do, it's to feel happy in the process of doing it.
And what will it take? So what are you going to be shifting in order to
just
arrive?
Being conscious, you know, about the way that I'm feeling, you know.
Right.
I think that's also very important. It's to not let your mind wander. You know, there are times where your mind can wander, and that's very important for it to wander. But I think that there are times where you can't let your mind wander, and you need to be in the present moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to your preference for the 60s and 70s. They were more present. There was more space. They were unfiltered, uncensored. It's like that's what brings you back.
They were expressive.
They were expressive.
They
you know,
were expressive.
Yeah.
I want to pick up on another word you said in your answer about Modu.
Yes.
So you mentioned community in relation to Majlis. Do you see your role as a mentor for next generations of, I don't want to say only Emirati designers, but Dubai-based designers? And I know that you created the UAE design exhibition.
Yes,
in Dubai Design Week.
Yeah.
Do you see a role? I don't want to say your role, but do you see a role for
mentorship,
established creators, designers, in mentoring next generations?
Yes, but not me specifically, you know. But I think anybody in the industry who has been in the industry for a very long time has a responsibility of passing down their knowledge. You know. Whether it's down or up, it depends, you know. That you're always going to be talking to people that are going to be more talented than you in one way or another, you know. Mentorship, I don't know, that word kind of makes me feel a little bit uneasy.
It has a corporate feel.
You know,
I agree with you.
Not just a corporate feel, it's just like, okay, I know something that you don't, so let me,
But isn't that true?
Maybe.
Yeah.
It is true, you know, but I feel like it's I don't know. I want to be able to share knowledge and get something back.
Yes,
you know,
and it goes back to what you're. It goes to what you're saying is passing on, because you know, at the helm of things, we're all storytellers.
Exactly,
and stories pass on. So maybe the choice of the word mentorship was a little bit, you know.
No, but it's passing knowledge, right? So I would think that everybody has that responsibility. So, for example, when I was curating the UAE Designer Exhibition, we had 30 different people, and I was helping them kind of develop their design, but in return they were also teaching me about new materials, new methods of thinking, you know. So every mentor isn't always going to be a mentor, I think. But what happens is that the mentor is also learning from his students, you know, if you want to frame it in that way.
So
the mentor becomes a mentee.
Mentee, you know.
It's that circular movement.
You're always both of them at the same time.
Yeah.
And when you have that kind of you know, there's two sides to every page kind of thing. I think you end up learning a lot more, you end up growing a lot more, and you end up building that community, you know, that is supportive of what you do in a much easier and faster and more efficient way.
Right.
You know?
And that, hearing you, it truly, like the whole idea of community and giving back to community and sharing and reciprocity is it's actually usually comes way further in life. Like, hearing you, I'm going, wow, so much maturity in that. But does it bring you happiness?
Maturity? No.
There's so much maturity. No.
He's still on the playful side of things.
Because this community and mentorship, it was like it got serious for a while. I was looking at you going, gosh,
who is that?
Who is that person? Is he really into it, or is that going to be one of the things you want to do?
I'm media trained, so
there you go. That's what I thought.
We are not editing this.
No, I mean, like, I think it also comes with a lot of, spending time alone, as a child, when, I didn't have very many friends when I was growing up,
Why is that?
Well,
a choice?
No, I don't think it was a choice. I think it just so happened that I was easily agitated, so people kept picking on that, and I just didn't want to have any friends, Or
good, you have boundaries again.
Not really. I just stayed away from people because I was scared, I was like, no, people, please. But I enjoyed that time alone because that actually helped me kind of develop skills. Even social skills in a way, like now I know so many fun facts about so many different things. That it's always kind of like a party trick. Oh, did you know that giraffes do this? Or did you know that
cows have a community?
But I think it comes from spending time alone, and then kind of having the opportunity to grow in that way, and then kind of practicing how to be around people when it came to being in university.
Yes.
Well, you turned everything into people. Even your furniture became humans with a personality and a name. And it reminds me now that I hear you speaking, it's almost like all of this is your imaginary friends.
Well,
like I do. I have my own imaginary friends.
Is there someone outside that's going to put me in
I have imaginary friends. I'm proud to say I have beautiful
We all have our own world.
And we have our own colorful, invisible world.
Right.
I mean, talk about the invisible world, but it's like a fantastical world that comes alive.
Yeah.
Speaking of that,
yes,
Lina always likes to end up a conversation with a question.
Okay.
A bonus question. Since we're talking about childhood and how you grew up, Lina, you want to ask that question?
The one that I like to ask at the end.
Yes.
If you were to ask, if you were to looking at a lens, let's call it like a, what is that ball? That
crystal ball?
Crystal ball,
If you had a crystal ball.
Crystal ball, that's the first time I use this. That's why I'm lost for words. If you are to look at a crystal ball and it takes you back to the child who's playing in nature, maybe alone, what advice would you have for that child going back?
Is to actually appreciate that you're alone. Because when I was alone back then, it did feel very,
lonely.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize how good it was for me until today,
how formative it was.
How informative it was, and how much of a learning experience it was, is to actually be happy while I was alone. So I would tell that child that, Yeah.
That's beautiful because it took you forward.
Yeah.
That whole thing took you forward, that aloneness. And are you happy today when you're alone? Because it feels like that's what you're planning. It's like my next trip alone in nature.
Alone?
That's the first thing that came out.
You make time for it. You're squeezing yourself to go there.
Now I yearn to be alone. Right. I really, not in a very depressing way.
Solitude.
It's but in a way where I can actually learn from that process of being alone,
Right.
So this is something that I feel that I need. Yeah.
Right. And is this something you would also take as an advice for people who are also trying to follow the path, the creative path that you're on, the shape-shifting of things, the layering and creating? Is that something you would also give as an advice for people?
No.
What advice
absolutely
would you
not.
give?
Like if being alone serves you, do that.
Right.
But if being around people also serves you, please do that. Like it's not just because it works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Be
and I know that
modular.
this is a disclaimer, but I know know that maybe some people watching this podcast that are going to be my friends are going to be like, "You're never alone."
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? You're always around us.
Yeah, but maybe you're zoning out when you're around us. You know?
I'm alone with them.
They're not going to appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, Omar, this was so inspiring. This was really, we can't thank you enough for what you have shared with us, for the, I don't want to say authenticity. What was that word we coined the other day?
You're asking,
radical honesty.
Radical honesty.
For the radical honesty.
Yeah,
And it's copyright to somebody else, but to the radical honesty, the kindness, the love you have shared towards yourself, but towards people around you. And the hacks you have shared with us, you know, the time to be alone so that you re-energize yourself, the importance of nature and what that nature brings as senses, not to be afraid of boundaries because they allow you to move forward. This is what I picked up, you know, throughout our conversation. And presence.
You guys picked up a lot more than I did.
We've been present with you.
Thank you for therapizing me, for asking all the right questions.
We're not going to wish you success because you are already successful. We're going to wish you pleasure and happiness with everything that you do in the future, and we look forward to your next creations.
And beautiful trips. Hope to hear about them when you come back, whatever you choose. What have you heard?
You will.
What did you hear in those murmurs in between the silences that you're seeking? I'd love to hear that. Thanks, Omar.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
This has been Forward Moves, hosted by Lina, Nahhas and Raja Haddad, a conversation about the path of successful journey of Omar Al Gurg. Our producer is Sai. We recorded at the Podster studio in Dubai. If you liked our show, please rate us with 5 stars on our page. Leave a comment. And if you're inspired, tell your friends about us. Until then, keep moving forward.